I mean, we know the nation of Israel is real. It's still there. We know that the Persians and the Philistines talked about in the Bible are still there because they're still here. They're still named that. Or sometimes the names change, like Philistine became Palestine, where it's just like it's almost like those ways that words pronunciations change throughout generations just because of the way people say it. And Jesus, do you think that the whole world would have Bibles everywhere and be talking about Jesus because nothing happened? And then people think that the Bible was like a conspiracy. The people who wrote the New Testament were brutally tortured and executed for it. And this is not just in the Bible. This is another one of those things that the archaeological evidence backs it up. There is historical proof that the punishments mentioned towards the disciples are also just mentioned in the history of those years. And that there's even Roman court documents, all this ancient artifacts that talk very consistently about what was described there, the practices that were there. And there were many witnesses to Jesus' resurrection and his killing. There's no denying that he was real, because the empire of Rome, as well as other empires, thought him a threat. I mean, in a lot of the world, it's not even a debate over whether he's real. It's a debate over whether he was truly the Son of God. If you look into the other religions from that area, which, by the way, we all want to say every religion's right, it's all just a matter of opinion and validity. No, because that also is saying they're all wrong, that they're all just thoughts and that none of them are in reality. Maybe, just like how the real world works, some things are true and some aren't. And I'm not saying that to battle face, to discredit what someone believes in. But when you look at some of these religions, they all popped up kind of in a cluster geographically, towards the Middle East, towards India, towards Africa, Mesopotamia. And they all tell different accounts of everything that happened leading up to when they started writing their account. And even though they disagree, they agree on a lot of the same stuff. They all say that there's this massive flood that wiped out a destructive race of giants, which, by the way, I'm not even going to get started on how crazy that is, because if you think that's a loony conspiracy or just prehistoric people didn't know any better, why are all of them saying it? Why wouldn't it just be a few of them had that interpretation? And why did they think it was so important that they took the time to carve it into stone? It's way harder than writing with a pen or typing on your tablet. You don't do it just for the thrill of a creative project. They did stuff like farming that they had to do to have food. So you think when they're carving stuff into stone and it takes that much of their valuable time that they need to survive, and they don't just buy stuff from the store. They never have those conveniences where you stop thinking about survival. These people who live by what was necessary to do took time out of their days where they're fighting to make food, fighting to not be consumed by wild predators, fighting to not be plundered by other nations and tribes. You think that they're just making this up and that everyone else made up the same story? Because you're insane if you think that. And you just probably haven't had it pointed out to you like that. I'm not trying to make fun of viewer. But if you really think that every culture just made up the same ancient history and that they're all lying and wrong about it, reconsider how much sense that makes. Now, reconsider the fact that all the ancient histories say there are these giants and other gods. That's what some of them worship. When they worship these other gods, it's not always just a spiritual representation of an idea. People will see those Indian gods, Ganesha and Shiva and whatever, and they'll think, oh, that's just a representation of a spiritual entity, or a representation of a force of energy, of a persona that we can all channel. They talked about these as real beings. They talk about her physically floating down from the sky with like 8 arms and like offering them society. That's the other thing, is The people who our school's textbooks credit to creating math, language, writing, astronomy, their own histories translated, it says, we didn't figure this out. The aliens taught us. And it sounds like the craziest conspiracy you've ever heard. But again, if this is what is in every world history and religion, what the heck do you think that means? Clearly something was going on. Because they made it a religion. They built temples to it. They worship it. Again, that's not just casual for the heck of it kind of stuff. And on top of just the writing, have you seen the stone inscriptions carved where they depict scenes? Because you'll see in those over and over again, there's these giants with these mysterious purse handbags and these long headpieces. And they're giant. They're massive compared to the people. And then all these little people who are like our size are worshiping them. You know what that looks like? It looks like there actually was a giant there and that he became their leader because none of them were more powerful than him. And that's why the Bible says in Genesis that there were giants roaming the earth before the flood and that they taught mankind improperly and that they were power hungry and selfish. It kind of sounds like back then it was just the bullies ruled everything. It was just whoever had more physical strength. So the giants dominated, and whatever they thought or said went. And they were known for developing appetites beyond what the world could sustain. They just consumed everything. And God had destroyed the world in a flood to get rid of all this evil. And then look at what is the first credited in public school as the first book ever written, the oldest book we have. They don't credit the Bible, even though it's older. What's credited as our first book is the story of Gilgamesh, a story of a giant wandering in a world that has been destroyed by a flood that he narrowly escaped as he contends to fight something called the Bull of Heaven. And his companion is an ancient demon who is worshipped by demon worshippers. I'm not going to say his name, mostly because I actually don't remember it. But you know, it's one of those like Moloch or Baal where it's like, that's not just a name of a character. That is like a evil entity mentioned time after time and time again. Like a big deal of one, like Satan. So I think that's significant. I'm just ranting here about why I think the way I think now. Because a lot of people probably don't know. Maybe re-explaining this stuff will help catch people up and think like, understand why I'm thinking some of this stuff.